Hey everybody, I'm Dees and welcome back to my workshop. Today we're going to start a new project. This is a tool making project, and this is going to be one that I've been kind of putting off because I wasn't really sure on the design of the project that I wanted to make for this particular tool. So what I'm wanting to make is a tailstock die holder. Many of you have recommended, hey, one of the projects you should make is a tailstock die holder. So that's what I'm going to tackle in this video. The objective of this video, of the outcome of the tool, is to hold a 1-inch die in the tailstock using a drill chuck. I'm not going to use a Morris taper. I want to be able to hold 1-inch hex dies and 1-inch round dies. I'm hoping to be able to make it universal so that I can use some set screws to hold either styles of dies. And so that's the objective. What I'm going to do is draw out a design that I have in my head. I've been thinking about how I want to tackle it, and this will be a living, breathing project that will probably adapt and change as we make it along the way. But the goal is clear. I want to make a tailstock die holder that can accommodate round as well as hex dies that are 1-inch in size. So I'm going to bring you along for the ride. I hope you enjoy. Let's get started with the project. Before we get started, I wanted to show you the taps and the dies that we want to accommodate. I guess a correction, I'm not going to accommodate taps. I'm not going to make a tap holder. This is strictly going to be a die holder. As many of you already know, I have this Pittsburgh tap and die set, and the dies that I want to be able to hold are out of this particular set. These are 1-inch dies that are out of this set, and they are round. I'm pretty sure they're 1-inch, but let's go ahead and measure them just to confirm. $995 thou. I'm going to call that 1-inch. It's close enough. Check another one. 989, 990 thou. 1-inch dies. So these are 1-inch dies. And then I upgraded. Enough about those Pittsburghs. And then I upgraded. I got me some Irwins, and these are the hex dies. Many say these are for rethreading, to clean threads and that. That's fine, but this is what I chose. I went ahead and went with a set just because I don't know what style of projects I want to use. This is what I wanted to go with, so this is what I chose. These are 1-inch dies as well. These are hex style, and they're 1-inch. Now, corner to corner, they are a little bigger. 1-inch, 120 thou. So this is going to be the challenge. I'm not sure if I'll be able to accommodate both styles of dies with the same tool, or if I need to make two tools. But that's going to be the challenge. So what I'm going to do is start with the goal in mind to make one die holder to accommodate both types of dies, and if we end up needing to make two, then we'll make two. But that's the idea. So the next thing I want to do, I just wanted to show you what I'm dealing with and what I want to be able to hold in the tailstock. So the next thing we're going to do is draw out what I have in mind, and then we'll bring you back. Again, keep in mind this is fluid. It could change as we're working the material. But that's what we're going to do. So I'll get that drawn up and then I'll bring you back. we've got this drawn out. This is the design I'm going for. It's pretty simple. We're just going to have a 1/2 inch shank that can go into a Jacobs chuck that's mounted into the tailstock. There will be a beefy portion that will have a recess for the die to sit into with some simple set screws that will mount on 3 of the faces of my hex dies. I think what I'm going to do is just focus on the hex dies and not the round dies. The round dies are undersized, they're under 1 inch, but I think it's going to work. I'm going to focus on the hex dies. They're larger. They need to fit within the recess opening, and the 3 set screws are going to hold them in place as I use it. I also believe that the 3 set screws will hold the round dies because there is a dimple and a slot on the round dies to keep those from turning. And if they don't work in this, then I'll just dedicate this to the hex dies. With that said, I don't have 2-inch material. I thought about trying to make this 2 inches to leave myself enough material for the hex dies, because it appears corner to corner the largest diameter or length that I have for this recess that I'm going to have to bore is going to be nearly 1.25 inches. 1.2, you know, something like that. The largest steel that I have is 1 3/8 inches. So this is what I'm going to use to make this. Consider this a prototype. Consider this my long-term functional material, but this is what I'm going to use. So, yet again, the donated piece of mild steel. You know who you are. Thank you again. We're going to use this again. I've used this for several projects. I'm going to have to get some larger diameter steel. I do have some larger diameter aluminum, but I don't think aluminum is going to be strong enough in the long run for using the dies. So that's what we have. So we're going to get on with this. I'm going to cut 4 inches of my mild steel workpiece, and that's going to be the start of this project. And then we'll kind of figure out order of operations, what we want to do, when we want to do it, and we'll go from there. It's not a complicated project. You just got to think about what you want to do, when you want to do it, and get through the project. Hopefully have a functional workpiece and tool when we're done. We'll get you set up. We'll get this cut off. We'll do it safely this time, and we'll bring you back. Well, we got our pieces cut off. This is our workpiece, and you'll notice that I am learning from all the comments from everybody. Thank you, everybody. Just be patient with me. I am still learning, but I do take all the advice from everybody about safety and techniques and things like that. You know, I used vice grips this time when I was cutting this. I am learning, and you know, some of the videos are ahead. You know, I've got them already recorded and posted to and scheduled to be released, so you know, bear with me. You may have already commented on safety issues and other things for me to improve on, and so I've already heard you and commented on those, but you may still see some of those mistakes. Just bear with me. Those improvements are coming, but I did use some vice grips for those to cut these off. But anyway, we got that done. We'll put this back in the pile for another day. And this will be our workpiece, and hopefully turn into something like that. I think what we're going to do is work on the head piece first. Turning this down to 1/2 inch, that can be the last order of operation. This is going to be the business end. The business end is the most important. We really need to make sure that that's working right. If that doesn't hold a die, there's no point in doing any of the rest. So let's work on this. If we mess it up, we shave it down and we do it again. And that gives us plenty of material to work with. Make a mistake, start over, and do it again. So the first thing to do, I think, will be to face off both ends so we have some clean ends to work with. Give it a chamfer so we're not dealing with any sharp edges, and set us up to work with a bore. I think in order to start with that, we'll do a center drill, and then we'll drill it out with the largest diameter drill bit that I have, and then we'll set it up to do the boring operation up to the largest diameter that I'm going to need to hold the hex die. Let's get set up in the lathe and we'll continue on. Good enough. We'll repeat. Okay, that's the start of our workpiece. I'm gonna pause here, regroup, and think about what I want to do next, and then we will continue on. I'll bring you back. Next step we're going to do is drill a pilot hole, and then we're going to drill a 1/2 inch hole. I'm going to go 2 inches deep. That's something I didn't put on the drawing, but that way if I'm tapping or using the die for anything that's up to 2 inches deep, I can just use it in the tailstock. But again, keep in mind that this tool holder for the die is really going to be for starting threads and shallow threads. It's not going to be for really long threads. It's going to be just to start them. If it's going to be for anything that's longer, longer than like 2 or 3 inches or 2 inches, it's just to get them started straight. Then I can take it out and finish it in the vise. So we're going to get this started, and then we'll drill it with the largest diameter drill that I have, which is a 1/2 inch. Let's get it started with the center bit. Lock this down. This is a new Jacobs chuck that I have. We're going to give this a shot, and we're going to turn this at a high speed, put a little cutting fluid there, and drill our center hole. I'm going to get a larger drill bit in here, and then we'll continue on. Alright, I decided instead of going 2 inches, I'm going to go 1.5 inches depth, because I don't want to weaken the mounting point where I have my 1/2 inch shank that will go in my Jacobs chuck. I don't want to make that too close together. You know, I want to leave some meat back there on the back side of the meaty portion, just to, you know, I don't really need it to go the full 2 inches. So I'm going to go 1 inch, 1.5 inches. How I'm going to do that, I think you can see here. Somebody mentioned, you know, I was using marker to mark my depth and everything, but what I'm going to do, I'm going to use a scale this time. Right now, I'm going to measure to the back of my Jacobs chuck here. I have about 1.5 inches. I'm going to go to a full 3-inch depth of this, of my drill bit. So when I hit 3 inches, that's going to be nearly 1.5 inches in depth to my workpiece, and that's when I know to stop. So I'm going to use the scale instead of a marker to get to my final depth, and that's going to be my initial hole depth that I'm going for, and then we'll move on to our boring operation. So with that, let's get started. There we go. That's going to be deep enough. That's as far as I'm going to go anyway. I'm going to get, well, I don't need a chamfer because now the next operation is to bore this out. But before we start that, I want to measure a few of those dies and get our final dimension for boring, and also the depth. That'll be the next operation. So let me get that done, and then I'll bring you right back. Let's continue on. I've got my boring bar set up. Hopefully you can see it. Hopefully it's not impeding, but it's a little boring bar. But I decided we're going to bring this out to 1.25 inches, just a straight 1.25 inches. 1 inch, 125 thou. That's going to allow all of the hex die to fit within the opening of the recess. The other thing is the depth. One moment. Let's double check that. The depth that we're going to go for on these is 380, 81. I think I'll just make it 385 thou. Make it a little bit more than what it is. So we're going to go for a total depth of 385 thou or abouts. Doesn't have to be perfect, but that's what we're shooting for. 385 thou. You know, I should think smarter. All right. Let's start over here. Let's redo this. I want 385 thou. So let's make a mark on my boring bar That way I know where to stop. So I want 385 thou. Yeah. Rather than play a guessing game, that's the depth that I'm going for. So rather than try to guesstimate and go too far, yeah. All right. Yeah, that first cut went way too far. Won't be a problem, but everything's a learning process for me. So again, I like to include my mistakes as well. I got this now. Take 2. So I want to complete the portion that's going to hold the die before I do any of the part where the shank will be. So far this is coming out like I expected. What I want to do now is chamfer the inside hole where I have the portion where some of my threading, my work pieces can go into, as well as the inside of this. And that's going to get me to a stopping point where I then can figure out where my 3 set screws are going to be. They're not critical, but they're kind of critical. They need to be in the right places to grip onto the hex die equally onto the faces. I have set screws, I just need to make sure that they're equally spaced so that they grip onto my dies the way that I want them to. Let's do these guys manually. I don't know if I can get that one in there. Let's try this one. Thank you. I knew that would come in handy. Thank you. All right, this is a good stopping point for me tonight, or at least for now. I'll come back out here. I want to think about where I want to put these I mean, it won't be that hard, but I need to be able to space these out evenly so that I can make sure I'm able to clamp down on my dies. Alright, I've been thinking about this, and I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to change things up. I'm going to put 1 set screw in here. I can always add 2 more, but let's start with 1. I have a pretty tight fit, a pretty close tolerance with my dies as it is. So I think 1 set screw is going to work out really well. Half of 385 thou, which is our depth, which looks like we overshot it a little bit. So what I want to do, this will make it easy. I think it's about 400 thou. So we're 410 thou. So we're going to make it 200 thou. So we want to go 200 thou. We're going to mark it 200 thou, and that is where we're going to drill a hole and put a set screw. Doesn't seem like it's very far in, but that is where that is going to go. There we go. So that is where I want the set screw to go. Yeah. So we can do this on the drill press, or I can do this freehand. And then we'll tap it, and we'll put a grub screw, a set screw in there, and that's going to lock my die in. And I think that's going to work out. And then we'll do kind of a little bit of a test, see if things hold up, get it started, and then we can flip it over and kind of finish things up. But we're moving along. Things are looking good. Alright, again, I don't know if this will be a permanent functional piece or a prototype, but we're going to knock this thing out. I'm going to start with a single set screw. We're going to do 1/4 20. I'm just going to drill 200 thou in. The depth is 400 thou. So we'll go 200 thou in. I'm going to take this out. We're going to go over to the drill press. We're going to do 13/64 to do our starting hole. I'm going to start the drill, the tap with the drill press, and then we'll finish it with the hand held tap holder, and we'll make sure that my set screw fits, and then we'll test it out and make sure that fits. Final operation will be to create the 1/2 inch tang on the other side of the die holder. So let's get this over to the drill press and continue on. set screw hole, tapped and drilled, 1/4 20 thread, and I test fitted it. It goes in there nice. It's a real nice fit. Screws in there really well. Let's give this a test fit before we move on with our piece. Here is our hex die. That should slide right in there. It's a nice tight fit. Turn that a little bit. We should be able to set that in so it doesn't spin. Tighten that down. That should keep it nice and tight. We have a through hole in there. I don't know how well you can see that. I don't want to get too close. This camera doesn't do a real close focus, but I think that's going to work. I think that's going to work very well. The next thing I'm going to do, in order to use this with the Jacobs chuck, I need to have a shank. I was originally going to do 2 inches. I think I'm going to do, it's a lot of material to shave off of there. I'm going to do 1.5 inches. I think that's plenty of material to chuck up in the Jacobs chuck. Maybe 1 inch to start with. Let me think about that real quick. I'll bring you back. You'll be set up over here in the lathe, and I'll tell you what I'm going to do. It's either going to be 1 inch, 1.5 inches. I just want to see how much meat I really need to chuck that up in order to, you know, have a nice solid material in order to be able to use this effectively. We're going to go 1.5 inches. I like the idea of 1.5 inches. Gives me plenty of material to work with. Gives me some extra material later. Let's get this marked so I have a stopping point. An 1.5 inches gives me more than enough to chuck up and work with. And again, our target diameter is going to be 1/2 inch so that it fits in the Jacobs chuck. So here we go. We got a lot of material to chew off, so let's just get after it. I need to take 25 thou off. I think I'd like to get a nicer finish though. What can we do? Maybe we'll rotate this tip, or we'll change the insert. Let's rotate this. See if we can get a clean cutting tip on there. See if we can't get a nicer finish. Close enough. We're going with that. I'm going to put a little angle on here and I'll just clean up this face. That'll do. Got a mess to clean up. Chips are coming off pretty nice with that carbide as I was whittling that down. I know I should have a bit of a radius in there, but again, this is kind of like a prototype. I'm going to put some chamfers on here and I'm going to call the part done, and then we'll do some quick tests so I can close this video out. Then we'll get it posted out there and we'll get everybody's comments on it and see what I could have done differently, what I could have done better. Maybe I'll make another one in the future. But at any rate, I'm kind of anxious to see if this works, if it doesn't work, how well it works, and then we'll get everybody's thoughts on it down the road. All right, let's get some of this cleaned up and we'll give this a quick test. I'm not going to clean all this up. I'll clean that stuff up later, but I want to give this a quick test. Alright, we're going to do a quick test to finish this thing up. Here's the setup. We got a 300 thou aluminum rod. We've got our chuck. And we have our new tool that we set up. We have it mounted up. We have a 3/8/16 hex die. We're going to slide it in. We're going to put our set screw in here to keep it in place. I'm going to slide it. You can't really see. But we're going to do that. And then we are just going to spin this, loosen this up so that the whole tailstock can come in. And I'm going to put pressure on it and see if we can't get that started. And see if we can't thread this. And again, this is really just to get my dies started. Proof of concept. Looks like it's going. There we go. I think what I'm going to do is take my little, loosen up my grub screw. Let's see if I can't slide that out of there, just so we can see a little more what's going on. Bring that guy off of there. Now, this obviously, this is not the right size rod for, this is just a proof of concept stuff. But there you go. That's going to work, I believe, moving forward. So I'm going to get this cleaned up. I'm going to move you over to the bench here, and we'll do a little bit of a recap. I don't know how long this video is going to be, but we're going to close it out. So I'm going to call it a prototype, but this may end up being something I use for a long time until it stops working or I need to improve it. What did we do? We made a tailstock die holder. This is the first tooling that I've really made for this lathe. I didn't know what I was going to end up with when I started out. This was the original design. Some things changed along the way. One thing that I didn't draw out was I made a depth. I drilled 1.5 inch depth into the body where I could thread deeper rods. The other thing, I went with a single set screw. Because my tolerance here is very tight, I didn't need all 3 set screws. I can always add those later. So those are a couple changes that I made. And then the other thing is I made a 1.5 inch shank. Otherwise, everything's pretty similar. We'll get rid of this. This is what we ended up with. It's a shop-made tool. We have an 1.5 inch shank. This mounts into the Jacobs chuck. Mounts in there nicely. That's how it will mount into the tailstock. My die slips in there nicely. It's pretty tight tolerance, and then I can set it with the set screw so it doesn't rotate, and then I can proceed to use my die in the tailstock with my piece chucked up in the 3-jaw. We just did a test, proof of concept test. test thread using this rod. Now obviously it's way undersized for using this die. I just wanted to get something going and proof of concept to finish out this video, but as you can see, it did start to cut the threads. I think this is going to work out very nicely. But at any rate, there you go. Kind of curious your thoughts. I know there's going to be a lot of comments on this. There's comments on all of my videos. Any rate, I think I'm going to use this. I think this is going to work out very nicely. At any rate, thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed, and we'll see you on the next one. Thanks for subscribing.